Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenhoff, coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us, call or text, same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on a live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We have a very busy show coming your way today. National Security Leaders for America member Randy Manner is going to be here at 10:33. He's a retired Major General. He's been on the show before. He served as the number 2 leader of the National Guard Bureau, and he helped to coordinate National Guard resources in response to natural disasters. And he has an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal today about FEMA and administrations responding to crises and natural disasters. It should be a very interesting conversation. He will be here at 10:33, 11:06. Dan Shafer, of course, from the Recombobulation area will be here. We will recombobulate with Dan. 11:33, we're going back to something that we did last week. We have a Grift of the Week update. And then we'll wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing, Jabba the Musk edition.
Very good.
Yeah,
that's
Jabba
what I
the
put
Musk
on there.
edition.
Yeah, and Jane, what is that referring to?
That is referring to the Matenaer On Air mascot provided by our friend Scott.
There it is.
In Shorewood.
Good job.
He and a friend made our own mascot. It is a little plastic statue of Elon the Musk's face on Jabba the Hutt's body. It really works well.
Wouldn't you call it our muscat?
Nice.
Calvin, did that even impress you a little bit? Nope, not at all. I cannot seem to make the youth of today laugh.
Yes. So anyway, this shouldn't be a thing. Jabba the Musk edition coming up at 11:51 next hour. So I hope you can stick around for that. A reminder as well, Wednesday, October 16th is the deadline to register to vote in Wisconsin online or by mail. So make sure you have a plan to vote, whether you're going to vote early, in person, day of. Check your registration status. Make sure you're registered. If you're not registered to vote yet, please do so. Go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov. All you have to do is put in your address, and it is a very, very simple thing to follow through.
It's great. It's a great website. I go to it a lot.
Yeah, it's very useful. And again, just to make sure that you're still registered and you are still on the voter rolls. In other states, I don't know, 400,000 people, whoosh, just all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah, it's coming out to be across the country millions now.
So again, myvote.wi.gov. Check that out today. We're going to start off with Derek Van Orden has an opinion piece, a really long opinion piece. In today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Derek Van Orden, of course, in the third, his challenger this election is Rebecca Cook. Derek Van Orden, famous around these parts, I would say, for yelling and cursing at Senate pages who were doing nothing more than taking photos of a ceiling in the chambers, which is a tradition. Otherwise, I don't know that he's done all that much. He certainly doesn't seem to be pushing through the farm bill.
Well, and that's the thing that honestly, like, you know, the motorcycle wiping down, the yelling at Senate pages, the drunkenness, the being at January 6th, the day of, on site in flak jacket and all the things. Honestly, none of those things anger me as much as the fact that A, he sits on the Ag Committee, and B, touts it as if I'm here for the farmers of Wisconsin. He has done yak squat about them. Honestly, I mean, really, this country, our legislative elected officials have done yak squat for them. But the fact that he uses them as such a puppet to, I'm here for you. What have you done? What have you done?
Name one thing.
Yep.
Well, he has many opinions. He has many thoughts in today's piece in the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. We thought we'd chew on just a few of those, including this one. The Biden-Harris administration has destroyed U.S. energy dominance, and every Wisconsinite has felt the effects of their America Last energy policies. We must return to an America First energy agenda. Wisconsin families cannot afford another 4 years without it. Isn't it handy that we have had Matt Randolph on our show, otherwise known as Mr. Global, who is a globally recognized expert in the oil and gas industry. He actually owns his own oil company.
Yeah.
He's been working in this industry for 30 years. He has enough facts
Facts.
not opinions. He has enough facts to pretty much annoy people on all sides.
Yeah.
Which I think is a wonderful attribute if you can have that. Calvin, we have a clip from Mr. Global talking about America being energy independent. Let's play that clip, please.
First of all, we absolutely became energy independent under Donald Trump. It's very simple. Energy independence is when you produce more energy than you consume. That's the definition. That's it. Nothing else. Stop trying to think of other ways to define what energy independence is. It's when you produce more than you consume. And in 2019, we produced 0.2 quadrillion BTUs
0.2.
more than we consumed.
0.2.
Today, we're producing 9.24 quadrillion BTUs more than we're consuming. So we are unbelievably more energy independent today.
Yeah. 0.2 under Donald Trump, 9.7 under the current administration. That seems more.
Calvin, Jane, listeners, I know that I'm not good at mathing, but 9 seems way more than 0.2.
It does seem more.
And hey, you know what? Listen to me right now. I'm glad that the country could get energy independent, and it was under Donald Trump. Good work. I doubt that he had much to do with it himself, just as I think that probably Joe Biden or any other president, it's the work we do through the companies and whatnot. But you can't paste it like, oh, we were energy independent during Donald Trump, then everything went to pot.
Yeah, that's not true.
No.
That's not accurate.
No,
that's not a thing.
Nope. We need to have a lie button or lie sound like ding, 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 lies.
Well, Daniel Dale from CNN, I don't know how he does it because he does a lie check on every Trump rally. And the latest one, he was in Detroit yesterday, and it was a really nice moment. And if you were listening to Earl's show, I'm sure you heard this already. You always want to go to a city and then insult that city.
Absolutely.
When city officials are standing right with you, it's a really warm, fuzzy thing. And so, what a great way to read the room.
But what's great is that the mayor wrote a piece about it and said, look, crime is down. People are returning. Economy's going well. Cool. Let's be like Detroit.
Let's be Detroit.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We are talking right now, however, about Derek Van Orden and his opinion piece in today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. He says we need to go back to being energy independent. We already are. We currently are energy independent. Another thing he says in this piece, as a veteran, many of the men and women I served with took their own lives. Tragically, we know that's true.
Yeah.
So I personally understand more must be done to support those struggling with their mental health. We must address this problem at the root. Increasing access to mental health resources is an absolute necessity. We agree with you. Unfortunately, it's always, they talk a good game.
Yeah.
But when it comes to actually funding those resources, that just seems to not happen.
He loves to use his military service. And that's the thing is, you know, he was a Navy SEAL. Great. But at this point, he has used his service in such a way to denigrate other people, Tim Wall specifically, but other people who don't agree with him, that this is all hollow to me and offensive, because if you really cared that much about your brothers and sisters and family members in the military, that would be like top of your list.
Yeah.
Top of your list.
The Journal Sentinel did send questions to Derek Van Orden and I believe Rebecca Cook. They do this with all of the candidates. So he was asked about gun violence because gun violence is the number one killer of our children.
Yep.
That's not hyperbole. That's a fact.
Yep.
Gun violence is the number one killer of America's children. So on the issue of gun violence, Mr. Van Orden says, in addition to equipping police officers who serve our communities at large, we need schools staffed with school resource officers. In the event of a crisis, school resource officers are the first line of protection. There is no excuse to not have them in our schools. Doesn't talk anything about increasing gun safety measures.
Nope.
There's no mention of universal background checks. There's no mention of red flag laws. None of that. Just school resource officers.
And school resource officers can be helpful, but they can also be very, very problematic. And there's a lot of evidence out there showing those SROs patrolling schools like a king or queen. And so that to me is also not the automatic fix.
Also, on the issue of healthcare, which is a big issue for all of us, healthcare, according to Derek Van Orden, absolutely needs to be made more affordable. It has to be done in the right way that protects patient choice and improves quality of care. Enforcing price transparency on hospitals and doctors will allow everyone with or without insurance to shop around and find services within their budget. Too often, people are hit with unexpected, incredibly expensive healthcare bills. By requiring providers to be more transparent about pricing, families can make informed decisions about their health without worrying about out-of-budget medical bill hitting their mailboxes. I agree with that.
I agree, but
I
isn't
think
that also,
transparency in billing would be great.
yeah, cool, but
This is where it makes me go, folks should make their own personalized decision based on what fits their healthcare needs. They do not need the federal government making those decisions for them. Apparently, that's only true if you're not a female. If you're a female, the federal government should actually absolutely be making your healthcare decisions for you ladies, because we're so silly.
and when they start making healthcare decisions for ladies, who's next? They can start making decisions for other people. Kids, we know what your kids need more.
Well, they were already doing that.
Yeah, it's once again, this is hollow. It's all hollow. He won't debate Rebecca Cook, so he's going to put all his points into an op-ed.
But he's a big, brave, strong former Navy SEAL. Is he afraid of Rebecca Cook?
If you keep on disrespecting him, he's going to call us and yell at us, okay?
Derek, call.
Please.
You're welcome on the show.
Oh, my God, call.
Anytime you like. It would be interesting.
It would be a very fun chat.
Coming up, Governor Evers. He's getting testy.
Yeah, and he's got buddies.
He's a little feisty. We'll explain. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. Join us. You can call, you can text, same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. After the 10:30 news, National Security Leaders for America member Randy Manner will be here. He's a retired Major General, and he also helped to coordinate National Guard resources to respond to natural disasters. He has an opinion piece in today's Wall Street Journal about different administrations and their approach to disasters, which has been, of course, a big discussion this week after the nightmare that portions of the Southeast and Florida have been blasted with these two hurricanes, Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton.
Mm-hmm.
It still doesn't sound like a hurricane name. But if you would like to help, if you would like to make a donation and help those folks, they're going to need help for a long time. It's going to take forever to even just clean up, much less rebuild. Go to civicmedia.us/help. That will take you to a page where we have direct links to certified charities, including World Central Kitchen and the Red Cross, if you would like to make a donation. But anyway, also from today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel, Jesse Opoyan, Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers joining a group of Midwestern governors today criticizing former President Trump over new reports, and these were confirmed.
Yep.
This has been confirmed by the Kremlin to Bloomberg News. Donald Trump said COVID-19 testing machines to Russian President Vladimir Putin at a time when things were in short supply and Americans could not get them. But he wanted to make sure his buddy Vlad was covered. So here is this letter. It also includes Governor Evers, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, and Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in their joint statement. Quote, putting pride and partisanship aside individually and as a group, we repeatedly requested President Trump step up and come to our constituents' aid in the way only the federal government could. We were repeatedly rebuffed, mocked, and told there were no supplies to be had. In desperation, we turned to private companies using money from our state treasuries to buy what our people needed. The governors accused the Trump administration of having completely abdicated responsibility, ignoring their requests for getting testing kits, ventilators, and N95 masks. I remember very clearly during COVID, during the pandemic, and Donald Trump saying at one point that if the governor calls him and they're not nice to him or they haven't been nice to them, he may not take their calls.
Oh yeah. That man is nothing but holding grudges.
Absolutely. His whole life is one big grudge.
Yeah.
And one big complaint.
And while Americans are getting sicker, dying. How bad was it? Even Vladimir Putin told Donald Trump to not say anything to anyone because he was Vladimir Putin in a moment of empathy.
Yeah, that was weird.
Was saying they're not going to like you for that. They don't care about me. They're going to care about you. And if they find out, they're going to be upset at you.
Maybe. Well, I don't know. If Trump supporters, I don't think this upsets them at all. They love Vladimir Putin.
Well,
they're Putin fans.
Now they are. But in 2020, we were still like, are we? Remember when we feared nothing more than communist Russia, and then everything seemed to be fine, and then Vladimir came in, and everyone else was like, "This guy is terrible." And we thought we were like, and then Donald Trump came through and was like, he smoothed that over. He reinvented Putin. Yeah.
Well, he certainly has helped remake, his image,
yes.
which is not good.
No,
Vladimir Putin is former KGB.
Vladimir Putin is a dictator.
But Trump really likes him. He seems to have a tendency to really like people with those authoritarian tendencies, like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un and Xi of China.
And Viktor Orban of Hungary.
Loving on some Viktor Orban, boy. Mm-hmm.
Good Lord. Nothing better than diminishing rights and suppressing your people.
Well, I think this is an important piece that was published in today's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel from Governor Evers, Whitmer, and Pritzker about the lack of response under the Trump administration during the COVID crisis. This is what a second Trump term would bring.
Yeah.
If we're in a swing state, but our governor is a Democrat. So if we have tornadoes blast through next summer, your community gets wiped off the face of the earth, and we go and ask for federal assistance, is Trump going to give us that money? Because our governor is a Democrat.
What will happen? It will probably be like January 6th, where he won't, or he'll sit there and go, did they vote for me? And he'll wait and wait and wait. And then when he finally has to, because someone in that room will push him to the point, he'll then say, I helped you. I saved you. I did it. He did the same thing at January 6th. He didn't do anything for hours. And then finally he does something, and he swoops in like, I saved everything.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll probably see, is him sitting in the Oval Office watching television and saying, well, show me the numbers. And he won't look at the numbers. They'll show him some colors. But that's what'll happen. That'll happen.
And you're right. He would absolutely take credit for it then.
Yeah. Yes. But you won't see you won't see sane people at any point, if that scenario happens, Jane, saying, well, Donald Trump went into NOAA or the National Weather Association or any place like that and turned on the weather making machines and hit us with a tornado because we didn't vote for him. That'll never happen. We won't say that.
That's because they don't know how to run them. They don't know how to run the machine.
You're right.
The Republicans weren't given the manual for the weather machine. We talked about that yesterday.
Sorry,
Greg.
I wasn't listening.
We talked about that yesterday.
I was thinking about Jabba the Hutt.
There is a weather machine that the government controls, but they don't know how to use it.
Yeah.
It's a very big manual, I understand.
It's just a big button that says on.
News is coming up next. When we return, we're going to be talking to Randy Manner, a member of National Security Leaders for America and a retired Major General. It will be a very interesting conversation. Please stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Good morning, Major General. Can you hear me all right?
Testing?
Yes, can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can. I was just making sure. Okay, thank you.
Yep, we can hear you great. We come back in about 4 minutes.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're sounding great. Do you have a favorite artist I can play as the bumper music?
Sure. Real quick, how about, let's see. So I know this is going to be a weird one. How about 10 years after, if I could change the world?
Yeah, I can definitely find that.
Okay. And as a backup one, in case you can't find that one, Nickelback, What Are You Waiting For?
All right, awesome. That
In
works.
fact, that one might be even better. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Sweet Calby on the board. Coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can always join us, call or text. It's the same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Just a reminder, Maggie Dawn's show from 2 to 4 p.m. She has great guests every day, but today she will be joined by historian Heather Cox Richardson. She's fantastic. She's the author of the #1 Substack, Letters from an American, and they're going to be talking tax policy today. So I would highly encourage you to check that out, Maggie Dawn's show today from 2 to 4 p.m. across the Civic Media Radio Network. Delighted to have our next guest return. He's a member of National Security Leaders for America. He's also a retired Major General. He served as the #2 leader of the National Guard Bureau and also helped to coordinate National Guard resources in response to natural disasters. Randy Manner is here. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Jane. I am very happy to be here. Absolutely.
Well, you just got off a bus tour. You and a number of other National Security Leaders for America were actually in Wisconsin. You made a stop in Madison and La Crosse just a couple of days ago. For people who don't know, Randy, explain what National Security Leaders for America, who are you?
Of course. So we're an organization, a bipartisan organization of Democrats, Republicans, and independents, composed of over 1,000 generals, admirals, senior enlisted leaders, ambassadors, senior executive service members, as well as some political appointees from both parties. And we are, quite frankly, the best way to phrase this, we typically have been on the sidelines our entire, well, first of all, by law, we spoke up not at all about politics while we were in the military or in government service. Since we have all retired, we are now upholding our oath of supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And we are united in supporting those candidates that believe in the concept of democracy. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. It doesn't matter. Do you support the concept of people voting and encouraging people to vote? And that's why we support both Republicans and Democrats across the country.
But you are particularly concerned about the possibility of a second Trump term.
Oh, we are united. Let me clarify. We are absolutely 100% united that Trump must never, ever, ever be the commander-in-chief and president of the United States ever again. We are 100% united, all of us, no matter whether Republicans, Democrats, or independents. We are united in supporting Vice President Harris and Governor Walz for the president and vice presidency. Absolutely.
I just want to repeat that one more time. There are over 1,000 former generals, admirals, ambassadors, political appointees of all political stripes, Republicans, Democrats, independents. Over 1,000 of these experts all agree that Donald Trump should never get back into the Oval Office. Now, you have an opinion piece, Randy, this morning in the Wall Street Journal, in particular about natural disasters, of which you have had some experience.
Yes. So as the acting vice chief of the National Guard Bureau back in 2011 and 12, my job was to help support the adjutants general in the states, to support the governors with National Guard resources, as well as coordinating in the Pentagon the money to back it up so that our citizens in affected areas could be helped and rescued both during the disaster and afterwards, to work hand in hand with FEMA in support of the governors of each state And so it is very, I guess the best way to put it is near and dear to my heart, the value that our government can bring to affected citizens.
It must just make your head explode when you hear Donald Trump out on the stump this week saying that FEMA's not there. They're giving people $750 and that's all. And there's no help for people who have been hit by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. And yeah, it's just, that's not true.
So not only is it not true, I mean, not true, they're 100% lies, not somewhat lies, all of them are lies. I have been there. I have done that. I have coordinated all of the National Guard resources of tens of thousands of guardsmen for various natural disasters to include the money to back it up. And then, as I mentioned, in combination with FEMA, because remember, the lead agency for disaster recovery is the governor of each state. And so the federal government supports the governor with resources. So the fact that Trump is literally spreading these lies and innuendo, first of all, it's indicative of the way that he thinks. If it's not about him, he literally is doing this on the backs of, in many cases, the very people who support him. Because the people who believe what he says, unfortunately, and refusing the aid are exactly the kind of people that probably need it the most. So it breaks my heart. I've talked to so many people who have family in the affected areas, and parents typically, but other times brothers or sisters who believe Trump emphatically and deny the ability for anyone to speak with them about possibly helping them for fear that their house will be taken or some other terrible thing could happen. It's just such it's the ultimate icing on the cake of the tragedy of the falsehoods and lies that he spreads that are hurting his very own people. It just,
What a
I'm
betrayal.
shocked.
What a betrayal.
Oh, it's a betrayal of his own people.
Yes.
And you know, the one thing that bothers me so very greatly is I did this 5-day tour endorsing like-minded candidates from Pennsylvania across to Michigan and Wisconsin and so on, is just the fact that I mean, I've done so many interviews, and there's 4 factors that I think are very important for the average person to hear, your listeners to hear, is that what we are dealing with, unfortunately, is a classical cult situation. And what are the 4 most important aspects of when someone's part of a cult? The first indicator is members of the cult deny they're a member of a cult. That's the first one. The second factor is that they believe everything their great leader says. They believe everything to be true. The third factor or indicator of a cult is that anybody who speaks ill of the great leader is the enemy and should be chastised and basically
jailed. He's fond of jailing people who aren't nice to him.
Oh, and our list of 1,000 is probably where he would start, quite frankly.
Yep.
And then the fourth factor is that anybody who leaves a cult is the absolute worst possible enemy and must be hunted down and disparaged, which is exactly what Trump does with, for example, Vice President Cheney or Representative Congresswoman Cheney, and just quite frankly, hundreds of other people who have come out from the Republican side, many who have served him directly and said, oh my God, this guy is a cult leader and he is a clear and present danger to our country.
And sir, that's something we've talked about many times on this show. And I think one of the other aspects of a cult is the leader gets to change the rules anytime he or she wants.
Yes.
And these individuals who came into the fold years ago and were part of the plan and were great helps, the moment they walk away, or they're just not even good enough, or they somehow contradict him or criticize him, they're off the table. To me, says to the most fervent supporters, fine, you want to support him, but he will change the goalposts on you. In fact, he's doing that now, even with the disaster relief, changing, spreading these lies. And then in years later, he'll probably say, I helped you. And they'll be like, yes, you did. So right. It's just always a changing scenario. And you can't, and in a cult, they say, you also never feel happy. You're always on edge about what's going to happen next. How is the leader going to be mad?
Right. You're always, and not only that, usually parts of cults are that they are angry people. Now, look, I'm an older white guy. For those of you who are not watching the podcast here, but on the radio, I'm an older white guy. But the worst offenders are older and younger white men, which I just don't understand. But part of it is I do. If they feel disenfranchised or the people are not listening to them, they want a strong man. I understand those components. The very sad news is that it's causing hate and division in communities, in families, and that's not the kind of leader that we want to follow. We want to follow someone that's going to be hopeful and someone who's going to say, we're all going to get a chance to get to the start line together and then go on from there. Because if you really think about it, and Jane and Greg, what Americans want, they want stability. They want good jobs. They want to feel safe in their home and in their community. They want a good education opportunities for their children and for their grandchildren. They want to be treated fairly and equally under the law. And that is what Vice President Harris, and quite frankly, every other president in history other than Trump, every other president has worked hard to work for all Americans to provide that opportunity. And so I think this is, again, it's a clear and present danger. I'm not holding back. I encourage everyone to not only exercise your right to vote. And by the way, this is not about policies or politics anymore. So if you're a Republican listening to this, who's voted Republican for 30 or 40 years or 4 years, whatever, I encourage you, along with literally the thousands of people that I have actually heard from in the past 3 months, I encourage you that this is the one time to put politics aside and say, do you want to vote for a wannabe dictator who has said it by himself that he will be
loud.
that?
Yep.
And that he will be vindictive and he will go after people and he will silence the press. He's already threatened the New York Times. I mean, he threatens anybody who doesn't agree with him. This guy, and I know people don't like hearing this, but it is the absolute same playbook of appealing to young men and young white men and disenfranchised older men that Hitler used from 23 to 33. It's the same kind of a playbook. But remember, cult members don't see this.
If you're just joining us, our guest is retired Major General Randy Matenaer, and he is a member of the National Security Leaders for America. They just did a bus tour swing across parts of Pennsylvania, Michigan, and here in Wisconsin with stops in Madison and La Crosse. And you have an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal today, Randy. We're going to put that in our show notes after the show is over.
Thank you.
But because now we're so fresh off of Hurricane Helene and Milton, and you helped to organize disaster responses when you were still in the government, and you talk about Project 2025 and what this would do. Not only do they want to get rid of NOAA and make you pay to get a forecast, but they're going to completely upend how FEMA is funded.
Right. I mean, the sad thing is, look, I'm what you refer to as a fiscal conservative, and yet I'm also a social liberal, meaning that I believe we only need enough government to get by, which means there's many states, unfortunately, across our great country that don't believe in environmental protection for their citizens. There's a lot of people who don't believe in education standards that are sufficiently high enough to provide good education and good jobs. So we need parts of government to provide for certain standards to raise us up as a people and to provide great opportunity, not only in the local community, but internationally as well. And with that idea, Trump is trying to get rid of the federal government, get rid of the safety nets, reduce Social Security, reduce the idea of disaster recovery. How can poor states, no offense, but predominantly in the South, in Florida, for example, with no income tax, how the heck is Florida going to pay for all of this recovery if indeed there is no federal government to help?
We're going to continue this conversation with retired Major General Randy Matenaer. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast and global Civic Media Radio Network.
tax the rich, feed the poor, till there are no rich.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin B. on the board. Coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. You can join us, call or text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Just a reminder, Wednesday, October 16th, this coming Wednesday, is the deadline to register to vote in Wisconsin online or by mail. So do it. Register now. You can register the day of. It's easier if you do it in advance. Go to myvote.wi.gov, myvote.wi.gov, and get registered to vote. And make sure you have a plan to vote either early or by mail or in person on November 5th. Delighted to have our next guest return on the show. Retired Major General Randy Manner is here, also a member of National Security Leaders for America. And this is a group made up of 1,000 retired ambassadors, generals, admirals from all political stripes, Democrats, Republicans, independents, you name it, who are all in agreement that Donald Trump is essentially an existential threat to our country and should never be back in the Oval Office again. Randy, you have an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal today. I want to go back to Project 2025 and what this would do to people who experience natural disasters. We have tornadoes here in Wisconsin. We have flooding here in Wisconsin. So this would also push to privatize disaster relief. So what does that mean?
So I think it's very important for every listener to understand that I do believe in the power of the private sector. At the same time, I also believe that the government is going to be there when you need them. And so the idea of decreasing the government and not permitting this, the one thing about it's like a life preserver. That life preserver sits on your boat or on a ship if you're on a cruise or something, and you don't really need it till you need it. And then you need it.
Big time.
That is what the federal government is for. Whereas with a private sector, they might go, you know what, lowest bidder, not so much. Yeah, whatever. No, we want people that say on their uniform, U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, U.S. Navy to support you. We want FEMA to be able to support you for it. So, and then it always, when you privatize things, quite frankly, having the states pay for this is very, very dangerous for the poorer states. And I'm looking at this from the entire country. I am not looking at this from one single state, because no offense, I live in the state of Virginia right now, but I've lived, because of the military, across the United States and across the world. I could say, hey, screw Florida and screw Alabama and screw all these other states, but that's not the way that we should think. It's we the people, we the people of the United States. We are in this together. The poor, the rich, those that, quite frankly, don't have the means, or that do have the means. Doesn't matter what your education level is. We got to come together and think about it, not just yourself.
Sir, I used to work in city government, and I always think of when we looked at privatizing a specific service, garbage pickup, we found out not only was it going to be more expensive, but we couldn't rely on the same quality. And so that notion of privatization for everything, I always think of that one little example from one small city in Wisconsin in the United States. It doesn't prove anything to me.
Well, and the other thing in your opinion piece today, Brandy, in the Wall Street Journal, is it's gonna change. So currently, the federal government supplies 75% of the funding for FEMA, and the state is responsible for 25%. Project 2025 is going to flip that, and the federal government then will only be in for 25%. And these states, as you pointed out, Randy, so many of these states that get hit by hurricanes are poor southern states. Where are they going to come up with 75% of this funding?
Well, they're not. And that's why, Jane, if I could bring this back around again as we're heading up here for the hour, is there were two songs that were played by Greg and the guys here. One was 10 years after I Want to Save the World. I heard that in high school. I'm dating myself, but it says, I want to save the world, but I don't know how. And the second song is by Nickelback, What Are You Waiting For? And it's basically saying, hey, now is the time to act. And the idea of, I don't know, I want to save the world, but I don't know how. I'm going to tell you exactly how you can do it, is you can vote number one, vote, vote. Every registered voter out there needs to know they need to vote for Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. That's number one. Number two, I urge every listener to call or email or use social media to reach out to 10 people and ask them, have you voted yet? Please go do so if you have not done so, and ask them to get 10 other people. This is going to be about voter turnout.
Yes.
There's almost no one who doesn't know who they're going to vote for. However, it's also true that some people are saying, why should I vote? They're throwing up their hands instead of, as was said, they're throwing up their hands like, I don't know what to do, instead of rolling up their sleeves and saying, I am going to go vote. That is what you can do to save the world. And I mean it.
This will have global ramifications. A second Trump term will affect the global order. We don't have nearly enough time to even touch on that. Retired Major General Randy Manner, thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you so very, very much for your service and for getting out there and spreading the message. Hopefully we could have you back after November 5th and have a different kind of discussion.
Jane, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure as always.
Thank you so much. News is coming up next. When we return, Dan Shafer will be here from the Recombobulation area. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenhoff coming to you live from our studio in downtown Waukesha. Join us. You can call, you can text, same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Coming up a little bit later on in this hour after the 11:30 news, we're going to have an update on the grift of the week that we brought you last week. And then, of course, we're going to wrap up the show with our new regular segment called This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today, it's the Job of the Musk edition.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to share, we got a really nice text right after the show ended yesterday. Jane and Greg, I laughed so hard at the story about the mice invasion, I had to pull my car over. That was yesterday's This Shouldn't Be a Thing. So don't crash, but thank you I'm glad we made you laugh. That makes us really happy.
We make you laugh. We also make you think of good driving safety procedures.
Absolutely. So this shouldn't be a thing coming up at 11:51. He joins us every Friday at this time from the Recombobulation area and also Civic Media's political editor, Dan Shafer. Good morning. How you doing, Dan?
Good morning to the Matenaer On Air crew. How's everybody doing today?
We are excellent. Let's talk legislature. I do want to, by the way, remind everyone to go to civicmedia.us. You have a great, very comprehensive voter guide. You break down every race in the state. It's exhausting, but it's just so, it's such a valuable resource that I really encourage everybody to check it out. Go to civicmedia.us and check out the voter guide that Dan Shafer put together.
You know, I want to put that quote from you, Jane, on the movie poster for the voter guide. Just, it's exhausting.
It's
Jane
exhausting.
Matenaer.
Recombobulation area, the movie.
Oh, I like it. I like it. So what is going on with the legislative races? What's sticking out to you right now?
Yeah, so I wrote a piece earlier this week on just kind of an update on the big picture of what's happening in the races for the Wisconsin State Legislature. Each individual race is, of course, especially interesting right now as we get so close to Election Day and people really start to pay attention to these down ballot races. You might have people knocking on your door, texting you, giving you a call, letting you know what's going on in these races. But I think, the big picture for this year, the big fight really is in the state assembly, where Democrats have their best chance in more than a decade to flip the state assembly. When I wrote the preview, I still made the Republicans the favorites to win in the assembly. I think incumbency is a huge factor.
Sure.
And I think we saw last week with some of the news following the third quarter fundraising reports that money is going to be a big factor in this race too. So one of the projection sites that I use, C-Analysis, that accurately predicted 98 of 99 of the results 2 years ago. They shifted a number of races in their projections in favor of Republicans. And I think the main reason for that is because of the fundraising. And the main reason for that within the fundraising is that two billionaires dumped millions of dollars into assembly races for the Republican Assembly Campaign Committee. So Diane Hendricks, the owner of ABC Supply, and Liz Uline, the co-owner of Uline, they put, I think between the two of them, about $3 million into legislative races. So it's so interesting to see, we'll see these like crazy fundraising totals for the presidential races or the Senate races and whatever, and there'll be like $1 billion or something like that in some of these races, and at just a couple million here and there can really sway the entire legislative branch in a swing state like Wisconsin, and that's what we're seeing now. So I think I started out with saying Republicans are about a 60% chance of keeping that majority in the assembly. I'm bumping that up to kind of the 65-70% range after this fundraising report, because just the money can play such a huge role. And we're seeing the tenor of the ads that have come out of the Uline camp, and they are ugly.
Yes.
And so I think, they will go to some pretty dark places to try to win these races. And I think we can't overlook that as a major factor in the state legislative races this year.
You mentioned all the money. I certainly have noticed ever since Mitch McConnell's super PAC poured a whole bunch of money here into the Senate race, and the Eric Hovde ads have gotten much nastier now,
Yeah.
and lying. I mean, essentially
Straight up
lying.
just lying.
In some of those ads. But yeah, I've
Yeah.
definitely noticed.
Lying about
I've definitely-
vulnerable people and
Yeah.
vulnerable children. It's
Yeah.
gotten to
Yep.
be an extremely ugly campaign. Yeah. And we can talk about that campaign too while we're on. But yeah.
But back to the assembly, I guess, Dan, one thing that baffles me, I know Wisconsinites are fed up with nothing getting done. You know, we currently in Washington, we have the least productive House probably in the history of our country. They're really good at doing nothing. Our own Republican-led legislature is similarly really good at doing nothing and sitting on money that's already been approved and appropriated and should be going out to help people with PFAS in the hospitals. So I don't understand why I'm going to vote for this same guy again who has done nothing for all of these years, because I guess I can count on him doing more of nothing.
Yeah, and I think we see a perfect example of that right now in the 8th Senate District, where Dewey Strobel is running against Jody Haber-Sinekin. You know, Dewey Strobel is one of the most fiercely partisan people in Madison and has taken, I think the Legislative Reference Bureau showed, one of the fewest bipartisan bipartisan voting records of any member of the Senate. And he's campaigning on being some sort of uniter who's going to turn down the temperature. And he is talking about the work that he did to pass this bill on literacy, while at the same time, he is
Yes.
on the Joint Finance Committee that is blocking the funds to implement that program in local schools. And now local municipalities are having to take out loans to address that issue. And it's just a perfect example of how broken and how warped the politics are in the Wisconsin state legislature and under Republican control. And, you know, we looked at the Marquette poll last week. The Wisconsin state legislature's approval rating is only 33% to more than 50 some percent disapprove. And I think, you know, people really do want change, but again, it's, you know, you kind of see the same thing for Congress. People have a very low approval rating for Congress, and yet people so often will vote for the same representative in their own district. So I think that is a big part of the dynamic that we're seeing here too.
I think one of the biggest parts of it is that, you know, you ask yourself, who would vote for Eric Hovde or who would vote for Dewey Strobel? As long as their opponent is that opponent, like I'm not
As long
voting
as
for,
it's a Democrat.
I'm not voting for Tammy. I'll vote for whoever. That's it. Because I think that's the layers. You have the people who love Hovde, which please show me one for whatever reason. But then it just comes down to
Diane Hendricks and Elon. They love Hovde. Anyway,
yeah, YouTube Diane Hendricks and Scott Walker and watch that little 45 seconds of misery. But also, it's just a matter now of it's who isn't the person I dislike. I dislike Tammy. I'm voting for Eric. That's it. I'm voting for Dewey Strobel because I'm a Republican and Democrats are the worst. You know, it doesn't even have to do with knowing anything about Dewey Strobel being one of the most obstructionist people on the face of Wisconsin.
but the other problem I think with that, Dan, and I want to reiterate this. Dewey Strobel now is campaigning as a moderate, and he's going to work across the aisle. And his big accomplishment is this literacy bill that is going to go into the schools and help our kids learn to read better. He's also on the Joint Finance Committee, which has approval to send out this money, and they haven't. They're sitting on it.
Right.
So one of the problems I think is that where are the papers? Where are the reporters asking Dewey Strobel about this? We don't see enough of that. We just don't. And so I don't think people are well informed that that's actually even happening.
Yeah, I think it's a challenging media environment right now. Wisconsin, you know, the national spotlight is so intensely on Wisconsin with the presidential race, and we're getting, you know, visit after visit from people in the campaign and whatever. And I think it's stretching resources here really thin, and you can often overlook some of what's happening in these down ballot races. And there's, you know, just fewer and fewer opportunities for like town halls and public forums and debates and stuff like that. It just doesn't really happen. Like I saw one candidate in a very deep red district, Alex Dahlman, I believe it was, who's also on the Joint Finance Committee. And there was like an invite from the League of Women's Voters in his district saying, you know, would you come to this candidate forum? And he released this long statement talking about, you know, how the League of Women's Voters is partisan now and they're just shills for the Dems and I'm not going to be part of this and blah, 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 blah. and I think that's just indicative of the type of media environment that we have right now.
If you're just joining us, Dan Shafer is here, author of the Recombobulation Area and also Civic Media's political editor.
Well, also, I mean, if he went there, he'd be probably forced to answer a question. And now they're so afraid of having to defend these obnoxious, toxic stances that to him, of course, yeah, the League of Women Voters looks like a partisan hackery of Democrat and liberalism, but they're not. We just talked to Deb Cronmiller, who told us they can't support anyone. They can't give money. They want to just get out the best information possible.
Yes.
And that scares people like Dahlman because they have to answer to their voting record.
It's a strange election year, and we've reached a very strange moment of it.
Would you say, Dan, it's weird?
It's weird. It's a weird time in this election year, and I think just looking at the larger environment, these conspiracy theories about the hurricanes and these conspiracy theories about immigrants and it's just like there's a really good piece on this in the Atlantic that just ran today. It's called "I'm Running Out of Ways to Explain How Bad This Is," about the misinformation environment by Charlie Warzel, who's a really good opinion writer over there. Check that one out. I could just read the whole column on the air now. But
we just talked to retired Major General Randy Manner about the fact, and he used to coordinate National Guard responses to natural disasters. By spreading these lies, Republicans are hurting their own voters. They are. A lot of people in Western, in some of these southern states are red voters, and I still want you to help them. civicmedia.us/help. I still want you to help those folks. But it seems like the Trump admin, they don't care. They want to use this message, whether or not it affects their own supporters. They don't care.
It's somehow beyond misinformation, right? It's something.
is.
It's somehow more malicious than that. And, it's like campaigns traffic in misinformation, and Donald Trump has trafficked in misinformation since he came down that golden elevator. But there's something else going on here that is particularly frightening, I think.
Dan Shafer is going to stay with us for another segment. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
discombobulated.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. 855-752-4842 is the number to call or text or leave a comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Jabba the Musk hates that we continue to call Twitter. He joins us every Friday at this time from the Recombobulation area. Also, Civic Media's political editor, Dan Shafer, is here talking about the current races, the assembly races in Wisconsin. Check out the voter guide, civicmedia.us. Look for the voter guide that Dan put together. It really breaks everything down. Very informative, a wonderful, wonderful resource. I highly encourage you to check it out. We were talking about the Baldwin-Hovde race and all of the money now that has been flowing in that direction. And I'm still baffled, Dan, by, we know Eric Hovde is a carpetbagger. We know that he lived in Washington for 20 years before he moved back to Wisconsin. And then after he didn't, he ran and lost in 2012. Then he went out to California for about a decade. And then it's like, oh, no, I'm going to, because I'm a Wisconsin guy. And I don't get it. I don't get the appeal when Tammy Baldwin has a long list of accomplishments and records of actually bringing things to voters in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and I think the story that I always go back to with Eric Hovde, because it's like, okay, he has part of his business here, and he has, born here and grew up here and whatever. He hasn't voted here in majority of the last few elections, right? I think it was the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel reported last year that it was like 17 of the last 30 elections in Wisconsin he did not vote here. And he had this comment on lead pipes earlier this week that I think over on the Earl Ingram show they had a really terrific reaction to that news. But he said like, there's not that many lead pipes in Wisconsin. Yeah, there's 150,000 lead laterals going to people's homes in Wisconsin. Mine is one of them. Like, that is ridiculous to be that ignorant about the actual issues that Wisconsinites face. And Eric Hovde, this part-time Wisconsinite, getting this kind of support. I think the word you're looking for here is what the political science dorks like myself will refer to as negative polarization. So It doesn't matter how bad your own candidate is. It is because you are so negative about the opposition that you will support anybody who will have the right letter next to their name in this
And that's
race.
what you were saying before.
It's exactly what I was saying. And that's exactly where those ads are going now. Those anti-Tammy ads that are coming out, they're disgusting. They are lies, and I hate them because you want to go like, it was cute when it was like, oh, she's not of Wisconsin. She likes to hang out with coastal elites, and those elites are Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But now they're getting really, really nasty. And personal. Yeah, that yes, very personal. And the whole thing with the lead pipes is, we had Earl on the show on Tuesday, and they talked about before Joe Biden stepped in to help out, the plan to get rid of those was going to take 77 years.
Yeah.
So that's not nothing, Eric Hovde. And he has that penchant of just like, it's not that big of a deal. But when you ask him how much he's worth, you see a different Eric Hovde. And for me, I want to ask you this, Wisconsinites, do you want to vote for a guy who has to register in this state now
to vote?
How in touch with Wisconsin is he if he has to register to vote the year he's running for election?
And I think for somebody who is this part-time Wisconsinite, multimillionaire business owner who has a beach house in California, to be telling people from Milwaukee who are putting water filters on their sinks in their homes to say that this isn't a problem, it's just so repulsive. He's running a repulsive campaign. Yeah. These attacks on, vulnerable members of the transgender LGBTQ community, it's just really, really an ugly campaign. And yet the part of it is the fundraising too. It's that $17 million from Mitch McConnell. Those are the ads that we're seeing. And it's $20 million that the U-Lines have pumped into this. The Washington Post had a story last week saying that the U-Lines are the third biggest political donors of the election cycle. Pretty much all of the top donors in the top five are Republicans too. But the U-Lines have pumped $75 million into the election. Most of it attacking Tammy Baldwin, a lot of it supporting Donald Trump, and a lot of it in a lot of these state level races in Wisconsin around the country.
Yep. Citizens United was a great idea. What a wonderful decision that was. by our Supreme Court. That was just
Chef's kiss.
yes, so well done.
I mean, you look at the early days of Hovde ads, it was him trying to identify with us, trying to be of the people, which I get that. But once he got to the point where the polls were showing that he was not going to win, and the U-Lines, Mitch McConnell, and everyone stepped up, they said, I don't think he's believes like you know what I mean? Like, I don't think he's this horrible of a human being. I think he wants to win and doesn't care, which makes him bad. But he didn't go negative like this in the beginning. Someone stepped in the room and said, do you want to win?
Yeah.
Then this is what we're doing. Get on board or drop out.
Well, it's fear and othering.
Yeah.
To me, that is the core message of the Republicans. It is fear of others, whether they be people of color, whether it be trans or gay or whatever. Women, because we're scary too. Yeah, it is about fostering fear and hatred of the other when we're all Americans. We're all Americans. We're not the enemy.
No.
We're not the enemy.
Yeah, those comments that he had in early days of his campaign is like, oh, we're not on the red team or the blue team. We're on the red, white, and blue team.
Oh, yeah.
Haven't heard that in a while.
Nope.
Haven't heard that type of messaging in a while. It's just in a very ugly turn that this campaign has taken. But, you know, some of the national prognosticators seeing this turn, seeing this raft of cash that he's enjoyed in the last couple months have pushed it towards toss-up territory, which...
And
this is where we're at in Wisconsin. Yeah,
I know, but if Tammy loses her seat and it goes to Hovde, we're going to lose the Senate, and then it's really going to be a mess.
Yep.
Okay. On that hopeful and optimistic note,
Go Bucks.
This took a dark turn, and I'm sorry about that. I'll end it on one note. There's a couple Senate races in Wisconsin that are looking good, that are looking more favorable towards Democrats, and maybe could be a bellwether for the state in the Fox Valley and the Green Bay area. Those are moving towards the Dems. Maybe that's indicative of something happening in that part of the state.
all right, we like that ending better. That was a better ending. Dan Shafer from the Recombobulation area will be here back with us next Friday at 11. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll see you in a week. News is next, and then we'll have a Grift of the Week update. Stay with us. This is Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Wheels up and we'll be rocking, getting out of frozen Wisconsin. I need you to recombobulate me. I want you to recombobulate me. I need you to recombobulate me. Won't somebody recombobulate me?
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, the Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. We got football starting tomorrow morning. Wisconsin at Rutgers. You can catch the game on WLAK in Amory, also WRCE in Richland Center. The Badgers at Rutgers tomorrow, 9 a.m. broadcast start. Listen on WLAK and on WRCE in Richland Center. We have This Shouldn't Be a Thing coming up, and that's how we're going to wrap up the hour. It is the This Shouldn't Be a Thing Job of the Musk edition. Thanks to Calvin. Calvin's the one who found this one. If you ever have a thing that should not be, send it in to Greg and me.
You did
Huh?
it.
I remembered.
What a rhyme.
Send it to Jane Says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS. Jane Says at civicmedia.us. We wanted to do a little update, though, on a segment we did at this time last Friday, Grift of the Week. And we gave a big shout out to the superintendent of schools in Oklahoma, Ryan Walters, who came up with this great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good idea.
Yeah.
Because he wants the Bible taught in schools. It's an historical document. He wants the Bible in every public school. He has mandated that every public school classroom in the state have a Bible and that the Bible be taught in those classrooms. There were some specifics about
Yeah.
the Bibles, though, that they would consider buying.
Yeah.
It had to be the King James Version of the Bible.
Of course.
It also had to include the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution,
Mhm.
and the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, most Bibles do not include those documents. You know which one does.
Wasn't there somebody else too? It had to be leather bound.
Leather bound or leather-like,
Leatherish.
leatherish. One Bible fit all of those specifications. None other than the God Bless the USA Bible endorsed by Donald J. Trump.
It only costs $59.99.
That's about $3.3 million to
Yeah.
get one of those in every classroom in Oklahoma.
Didn't you go on Amazon just to see how much a Bible costs?
You can buy a Bible for $2.99.
Yeah, they're $2.99, folks, not $2.99. Although Oklahoma's not outside the realms of that if it was endorsed by Donald Trump. Yes, $59.99 per Bible.
Yep.
Per classroom.
Per classroom.
3.3 million, I believe it was.
And Donald Trump gets a cut of that.
yeah,
He gets a cut of every
yes,
Bible,
of course he does.
which is why we called it Grift of the Week.
Grift of the week.
Little side note about those Bibles.
Yeah.
The Donald Trump God Bless the USA Bible is made in China. Details. Picky little details.
Of course it's made in China.
Of course, and then should he get reelected, I'm sure Donald Trump won't impose tariffs on those Bibles because that would prevent him from getting his cut. We wouldn't want that. But there has been a change. There has been an update.
Oh, thank God. So they're not going to get the Bibles anymore?
No, that's not exactly it.
Oh.
They still want the Bibles, but it doesn't have to include the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution. They can be separate. So this apparently opens the door for other Bibles to be considered.
You know that there are people in Oklahoma right now losing their minds saying, my child will only learn by one Bible, and that is the King Donald Trump Bible.
Ryan Walters, superintendent of public schools, says, quote, the left-wing media hates Donald Trump so much and they hate the Bible so much. They will lie and go to any means necessary to stop this initiative from happening, unquote. Unfortunately, there have been false reports repeated by numerous supposedly credible news organizations that the state's request catered to one specific organization. No, according to Ryan Walters, that was so that only one manufacturer's Bible would qualify. Now, that would be illegal, so that's why they can't do that.
I just want to know when Oklahoma will start providing Qurans, Talmuds, the Book of Mormon,
I don't
Satanic Bibles.
I have a feeling that will not happen.
But Jane, if it's a historical document that the children need to learn, it just seems fair, right, and prosperous of us as a country, as a melting pot.
To provide these?
Yes. Yes. There's even an atheist Bible. It's just a place. It's just empty space there. It's nothing there. It's just like sleep in, go to brunch. Apparently a friend of mine just sent me this. Apparently the Trump-made Bibles that are, by the way, sorry, let me rephrase that. The made in China Trump-made Bibles are $3 a piece.
That's what it costs to manufacture them.
With a markup of $56.99.
You got to get your cut. If he's going to put his name on it, he wants his cut. If there's anything we know about Donald Trump, it's that he expects to get paid, dude.
Oh, and the front of it has on, like, in print, it says Donald J. Trump, 45th President of the United States of America. The day God intervened, July 18th or 13th, 2024. It has the day of the assassination attempt on it, too. He didn't say anything about that for a little while.
About the assassination
Yes,
attempts?
and now the billboards in Milwaukee can't shut up about them.
What I find offensive about that,
Yeah.
and we have talked about this before, I am not a person of faith. I was raised Catholic, but I am not a person of faith, but I have good friends who are.
Mhm.
What really offends me about that is there is an innocent man who was killed that day.
Yes.
So if this was a miracle, it was kind of a one-sided miracle.
Absolutely. And let's also not we can also talk about the fact that he made fun of the family of the victim,
Yes.
he said that,
They gave her a check for $1 million.
$1 million?
That's what he claimed.
Oh my goodness.
And said that she was very grateful for it, but she said she'd rather have her husband back. And I know a whole bunch of other couples where that wouldn't be accurate. Ha ha ha.
Yeah. I also have friends who are Christians who don't like talking about their Christianity in front of people because they're afraid that they're going to get judged because they're going to be put
Judge
into
on
them.
on these standards.
Yes.
Grift of the Week update. Oklahoma schools. Now they're opening it up to other Bibles
Yes. Oh.
that can be considered. So good for you there. Why not, Ryan Walters? Why not mandate that all the athletes in Oklahoma public schools have to wear Trump's $500 sneakers? How about that?
I like this.
I heard the quality's really good.
Yeah.
And they can have a little pocket constitution on the bottom of them.
It's too bad they don't make steaks. They can mandate that before every game there's like a pep rally cookout with only Trump steaks. They should be a Trump endorsed state. Everything is Trump. Airfare, college, steaks. Oh, that's right. All those failed horribly.
You tried that. Mark from Prairie du Sac has been very patient. Good morning, Mark. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, well, why isn't the do a Catholic Bible that they have? Because my understanding, the Catholics didn't used to accept the King James version back in the day. I mean, that's just ridiculous. But I mean, that earlier, I was thinking that none of these local Republican politicians in this state have condemned the fake electors conspiracy or the insurrection of January 6th. Come out and publicly condemn that loudly and vociferously, and it is just. As far as I'm concerned, if you do not do that, you are in violation of your oath of office. Because Liz Cheney stepped up and condemned both of those things, and I meant to repost it on some of these Republican Facebook pages, touting how great Joan Bowig is, who was the senatorial candidate for my redistricted district up here, running against Sarah Kieske, who is a great candidate, great person. And on the assembly side as well, that they're not condemning the fake electors thing or the insurrection. And as far as I'm concerned, unless you can do that, as simple as that, condemn that violence against our Constitution, against the American people, you got no business for serving in public office. Period.
Oh, Mark, you're
I'd
absolutely
say that right to their face.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I feel the same way. And that's why we were joking about this the other day, about having people call their representatives to find out if the government controls the weather, because they won't answer those questions.
No, they won't. They won't say, "Will you accept the election results?" They won't answer those questions about the weather. And Mark, frankly, they don't have to condemn anything. Wisconsin's not condemning them. Wisconsin isn't charging these individuals with crimes.
The fake electors.
We're the only one of the 4 states that haven't indicted those individuals. they're keeping their jobs on the election commission,
Yes.
and they're getting new jobs, quote unquote, reforming the government. So why should they have to say anything? We're not doing anything either. And I think that's a message to you, Josh Call. I think if you want to run for attorney general again or more, this is going to be something in your records that people are not going to like.
Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate you checking in, and thank you so very much for listening. We're doing a little update on the grift of the week from last Friday. Oklahoma Public School Superintendent Ryan Walters requiring that all public schools have a Bible in the classroom, wanted to buy 55,000 of them, but they just had a couple little requirements. Had to include the Constitution, the
Boom.
Declaration of Independence, had to be either leather or leather bound, and shockingly,
And the Bill of Rights. Don't forget the Bill of
that too,
Rights.
there was only one Bible that fit all of those parameters,
Yeah.
and it just, on a fluke, turned out to be the Trump "God Bless the USA" Bible made in China.
What's funny is if you tell me that, I was like, I need the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. I'm like, you don't know what the Constitution is then, because that's a 2-for-1 right there. The Bill of Rights, right there in the Constitution, buddy. You could save your money.
Don't confuse me.
I know, you're right. I'm such a jerk.
Since we're speaking about Bibles, Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is out on the stump. Calvin, I believe we have a clip from the coach talking about Bibles.
This guy has spent his life, Trump has spent his life talking a big game, but he has been an absolute disaster for working people. One of the biggest losers of manufacturing jobs of any American president in history. Under Donald Trump, we saw 280,000 Michigan jobs gone. 30,000 of those manufacturing jobs gone. Nearly 9,000 auto industry jobs gone. Trump's presidency was an endless string of broken promises. He actually came here to Warren when he first ran, and he promised you, under a Trump presidency, you won't lose a single plant. Technically, it wasn't a lie, because he lost 6 of them, not 1. So, as they fact-checked me, I got it right. They lost 6 of them. Look, he lost the GM transmission plant down the road. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. He promised to fight for union workers, repeatedly turned his back on them. He even encouraged automakers to move manufacturing out of Michigan and go to anti-union states so they could pay their workers less. There's the reason that the UAW members endorsed Kamala Harris, and your president and many of your members called him exactly what he was, a scab. All right, we all get it. Americans worry about it. He promised you he would stop the offshoring of jobs.
This is Tim Walz.
But he cut taxes for corporations that during his presidency shipped 200,000 jobs overseas. He awarded $425 billion in federal contracts to companies that were offshoring those jobs. So some of you, this is spinning right now, you're thinking. So he gave your tax dollars to companies who sent your jobs abroad. That's Donald Trump. As a result of his trade wars, his disastrous mismanagement of COVID, at the end of his presidency, he had wiped out more than half of the manufacturing jobs that had been created in the decade before he came in. He was asleep at the wheel while China seized the advantage. And now he says we should just let China dominate the auto industry. But it's no surprise, Trump's all talk when it comes to being tough on China. Some of you heard this. We just found out his Trump-branded Bibles, yeah, they're printed in China. This dude even outsourced God to China. So just so we know. Again, I'm going to try and be generous here. I don't blame him. He didn't notice the Made in China sticker because they put it inside a place he's never looked in the Bible.
Governor Tim Walz out on the stump. All right, we got to go. We will be back with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Cal Viente on the board, coming to you from our studio in downtown Waukesha. Join us, call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Todd Albaugh Show coming up right after we are done. And the 12 o'clock news, Todd from noon to 2. For another show, Brady Ewing going to join Todd today. They're going to talk about this weekend's matchup of Wisconsin versus Rutgers. And you can hear that game starting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Listen on WFHR in Wisconsin Rapids and also on WRJN in Racine, 98.1 FM in Kenosha, Wisconsin at Rutgers tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. It is 11:52. That means it's time for the latest edition of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
We had a really nice text after yesterday's show when we talked about the mouse infestation. And texter sent in, Jane and Greg, I laughed so hard at the mice invasion, I had to pull my car over. Thank you. I needed that today. Love your show. Thank you so very much for that. We really appreciate it. And we do read every single text. We don't always have the chance to respond to them in real time, but we do actually read every single one. And every email as well.
And if you are on the live stream right now, all 204 of you, if you left a live stream comment, we'd read that too.
We would see that as well.
Hi.
Yes. If you ever have a thing that should not be, send it to Greg and me. At Jane Says, JANESAYS. Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Today's thing, Calvin found it. Calviente, why don't you explain a little bit what today's thing is?
Yeah, so I guess I don't know if it was Tesla exclusive or if this was a wider automotive show.
It was invitation only. I know that.
Okay. So, but Tesla unveiled two new products, a robo-taxi and a larger robo-taxi. And before I say what I think of this shouldn't be a thing, I'll preface this. I shared this article with Jane and Greg found it independently, and we all almost came up with different directions to take which
aspect of this shouldn't
be a thing.
Right.
But for me, it was the larger robo-taxi is spelt robo-van. And I'm like...
So it's ROBOVAN.
Yeah. I'm like,
robo-van.
Okay, that makes sense to me. But then Elon introduces it, and he's like, yeah, this is the new Tesla Robovan.
What?
And I was like, okay, maybe he's making a joke. And then he said it like 3 more times, the Tesla Robovan. I'm like, it's a very obviously Robovan, dude.
He's Robovan?
So is the smaller one the Tesla Tesla Robo minivan?
No, I think the smaller one's just the Robo Taxi, to be honest. I didn't really look that far into that.
Robovan.
Just some weird off pronunciation that makes it sound like not Robo.
Are we pronouncing the other? Is it pronounced Kybertruk?
It could be. Well, I also love the event was underway according to this article from CNBC. He got there an hour late.
Yeah,
he got there an hour late. That's not a very good reflection on your cyber cab if you can't get to your own event on time.
Well, when I saw the video clips, you're not talking about what was also there, which was a parade of robots.
Yeah.
He wants to be Tony Stark. He wants a suit of armor around the world. He wants to be it so much, but he isn't. First of all, he's dumb. Second, he doesn't invent anything.
No.
He just takes. And third, he's weird. Rabovan, shut up. And you know what happened? Do you know what happened on the website that he bought? Everyone's like, because he said the robots will be able to do anything. And everyone's like, anything? And it's all lewd pictures. Because when you say that, that's what you open yourself up to. And then there was a video of him getting into, I guess we're calling it the Rabovan now.
Rabovan.
And he gets into the right side, the passenger side seat, and the door closes like a terrible futuristic car and just slowly jaunts away.
Yeah, I mean, the cars look like they're almost pulled from the video game Cyberpunk 2077. It takes place in this future city called Night City. It's like around San Francisco, like in the game, but whatever. And that's not a good thing, I would say, because this is a dystopian city where corporations and organized crime are the de facto government.
Oh, fantastic.
Sounds like
That sounds like Nirvana.
his perfect world.
My take on this, the presentation ended with Elon saying, "Let's party," and the live stream showing a group of Optimus robots dancing to club hits. That should not be a thing.
This is the first.
Ew.
I think this is the first. This should not be a thing that has many sub. This should not be a things. Like when you read a document, like subsection 2, the Optimus Primuses.
Robots.
Yeah, you know like let's just start. Elon Musk shouldn't be a thing. Robovin shouldn't be a thing. Robots. Anything having to do with technology and him shouldn't be a thing. His weird jump shouldn't be a thing.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we have Jabba the Musk here.
Exactly.
With hut-like arms.
If you ever have a thing that should not be, send it in to Greg and me. Jane says at civicmedia.us. That was today's edition of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Thank you, Greg and Calvin, all of our engineers, everyone across Civic Media. Without you, nothing works. Thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It means the world. I hope you find some joy over the weekend and you have the chance to share it. News is next. Keep it right here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you Monday.